Good evening. Every few years, the market creates a new fantasy, a company so exciting that people suddenly stop caring about patience, diversification, or long term thinking. Right now, the market is treating SpaceX like the next great IPO fantasy. And right now, millions of people are imagining the exact same thing, getting in early, telling the story later, being the person who was there when SpaceX went public and changed everything. The fantasy is the subject of today's clip because fantasy is the most expensive thing in investing and it is about to have its biggest moment in years. Nobody wakes up at 3 a.m. whispering to themselves, God, my diversified index fund is compounding beautifully tonight. Nobody posts about it and nobody brings it up at the dinner table like they discovered something the rest of the world missed. But an IPO is different. An IPO has mythology. Getting in early on the right one is the modern version of finding gold. It is the story everyone wants to tell, the one where you saw something nobody else saw, where you moved fast while everyone else was still thinking about it, where one decision changed everything. SpaceX carries all of that energy right now, right this moment. It has rockets, Starlink, Mars, Elon Musk, the most cinematic business story of the decade. It does not feel like an investment, it feels like destiny. And honestly speaking, this is a very hard thing for the human brain to resist, especially when Elon Musk is involved. And look, maybe SpaceX becomes one of the greatest companies ever built. Maybe it really does go to the moon, financially speaking. This is genuinely not the point. The point is what happens to your brain when a story becomes exciting enough. So here is what actually happens. And this is the part worth understanding deeply. The excitement arrives before any analysis does. That is just how human brains are wired. When something is cinematic enough, dopamine fires first. The rational case gets built second. And by the time you are sitting down to think it through carefully, your brain has already decided and is now just looking for evidence to confirm what it already wants to do. This is called motivated reasoning. And financial markets are basically a giant machine built to turn emotions into decisions. The social proof kicks in when everyone around you is talking about the same IPO. Not participating starts to feel like the mistake, like you are the only person in the room who does not understand what is happening. It is a deeply wired social survival instinct. IPO season weaponizes it perfect. And then urgency closes the trap. There is a date, a window, a moment that opens and closes. That artificial scarcity is one of the most powerful psychological triggers in the existence. The combination of excitement, social proof, and urgency has been separating intelligent people from their discipline since the first public company ever existed. Have you ever bought an IPO or seriously thought about buying one? Tell me what that feeling was like, because that feeling is exactly what we are talking about. Look at this. Facebook 2012, the most anticipated IPO in a decade. Within 3 months, the stock had lost more than half its value. The people who bought on day one waited over a year just to get back to where they started. Uber 2019 dropped significantly within weeks of listing did not recover for another 2 years. The pattern is remarkably consistent, and it makes perfect sense once you understand how IPOs work. By the time you can buy, the institutional investors are already there. They got in before the listing, before the headlines, before the excitement reached everyone with a brokerage account. And at the moment you are finally able to buy, many of them are selling to you. At that point of maximum excitement, when the prices reflects the fantasy more than the business, you are not getting in early. You are arriving at the party just as the early investors are heading for the exit. If SpaceX lists at anything close to its rumored valuation, it becomes one of the largest companies in the world immediately, which means it gets added to the major stock indexes, which means if you own an S&P 500 fund, SpaceX goes into your portfolio automatically, without you doing anything, without standing in line behind Goldman Sachs, without buying at peak excitement from someone who got in cheaper than you. The boring fund is going to own SpaceX while you were agonizing about whether to buy at the IPO. Sit with that for 1 second. But here is the deeper issue, the one that actually matters more than any single IPO. The danger of IPO mania is not losing money on a trade, because people lose money and recover. The real danger is what happens to your system when excitement walks into the room. You stop the monthly contributions because you want to accumulate cash for the IPO. You sell the index fund to free up capital, and you pause the boring and consistent and automatic thing that was quietly working because the exciting thing made it feel embarrassingly small. And then what happens? Then the IPO disappoints, or it goes up and you sell too early because you are nervous, or it goes up and you hold and it comes back down. And now you are outside the system that was compounding the whole time you were distracted. The system does not forgive interruptions the way it rewards the consistency. And here is the final irony that nobody talks about. Let's say the IPO works perfectly. You buy and it triples. You make serious money. What are you going to do with those money? You have to put it somewhere. You cannot leave life-changing money sitting in cash losing value. Any financial advisor on Earth or Mars is going to tell you to diversify it, to put the majority into a broad market index fund, to let it compound over the decades. So the money from the exciting thing ends up in the boring S&P 500 fund, which at the end of the day means the boring fund was always the destination. The IPO was just a more expensive, more stressful, and more emotionally exhausting route to get there. Look at it. Now, there is nothing wrong with the excitement. There is nothing wrong with believing in great companies or wanting to own a piece of something extraordinary. The danger starts exactly at the moment when the feeling of being part of something cinematic becomes more important than the quiet act of building actual freedom. Financial freedom does not look exciting while you are building it. It looks like the same contribution going in on the same day every month while interesting things happen around you that you choose not to be distracted by, like I'm getting distracted by this beautiful beach. That is the strength this requires, not intelligence, not perfect timing, not finding the next rocket ship before everyone else. Just the ability to keep going when the boring things feel boring and the exciting things feel like the destiny. SpaceX will be a great story either way. The question is whether you let it interrupt your story. Life is easy. We are the ones who complicate it. Subscribe if you want more of these amazing advices, and I will see you next week on Tuesday. I'm out of here.